From the years 1976 to 1983, Argentina was a country under the subject of a military dictatorship. During this time, there was approximately 13,000 disappearances, including those of children and those thought to be a political or ideological threat against the government. Even those that were only believed to be associated with treason against the government were killed to break the will of the guerrillas. This constant threat and countless deaths caused many Argentinians to live in fear. On April 30th, 1977, a small group of mothers gathered in the Plaza de Mayo to request an audience with the government, which was denied. In result, the mothers decided to start a group called Madres de la Plaza de Mayo. This group nonviolently protested against the dictatorship every Thursday since 1977 and still continues to do so today. Their initiative was not to topple the government, but rather to find out where their children were and plead their innocence. The organization was at constant threat of the government, yet they still created pressure by creating a newspaper and continuing to protest. The protest of mothers, which was steadily increasing in size, attracted the attention from human rights organizations who helped them in their fight for justice. Because it was the children's disappearance that caused the women's demonstrations, we must ask ourselves, what role did the concepts of gender and motherhood play during the non-violent protest against the Argentine dictatorship? In order to answer this question, we will look at three important primary sources which allow us to form a more reliable opinion. Here is the first one we will look at.
Maria de Rosario de Cerruti is a Madre de la Plaza de Mayo who portrayed the importance of gender and motherhood throughout the actions she took against the dictatorship. She said, "One of the things that I will simply not do now is shut up. The women of my generation in Latin America have been taught that the man is always in charge and the woman is silent, even in the face of injustice. Now I know that we have to speak out about the injustices publicly. If not, we are accomplices, and I'm going to denounce them publicly without fear." Throughout history, women were often expected to be submissive and go along with what their husbands said or did. Therefore, it is incredibly important that this was in an organization made up of only women taking action and rejecting society's norms because their children had disappeared. It can be argued that women have been accomplices to crime by not doing anything against the injustices committed. However, Maria de Rosario de Cerruti says she will not be an accomplice, but rather expresses what she believes in. This shows the importance of women in history by offering a different perspective on the situation affecting its outcome. It also demonstrates how, in the case of Madres de la Plaza de Mayo, the role of motherhood and love for their children made them take to tremendous risks connected to opposing the dictatorship.
In the interview conducted by Geraldina Colotti for Il Manifesto, she interviews Hive de Bonafini. De Bonafini says, "We have decided to make the event social. We talk about our children to talk about the history of this country. They gave their lives for a dream. We have decided to share it and renew it every day since. The revolution is a political act of love. I was summoned 3 times in court for inciting violence. If you want to arrest me, go ahead. I'm waiting." The emotional perspective of this movement is clearly shown in the passage. The women, just like the proud mothers they are, continuously applaud their children for their bravery in spite of their absence. They are driven by love to do everything possible to try to get their children back, which can be related to their motherly instinct. Because they are strong women, they have been singled out for their supposed brutality, when those who oppress them are just intimidated by their strong willpower and gender.
Jorgelina Molina Planas, a young woman who disappeared during the Argentine dictatorship, shared her story with the general public. She aspired to make the world more aware of the thousands of lives that were negatively affected by the military dictatorship. Children across Argentina were given new identities, leaving their family's history completely forgotten. The couple who adopted Jorgelina renamed her Carolina Maria Sala after her father was shot and her mother went missing. A minimal amount of children had the opportunity to reunite with their real family, which makes Jorgelina's story impressive. This is a very valuable source because Jorgelina, unlike the majority of people who disappeared, was recognized by her real grandmother. Women, similar to Jorgelina's grandmother, struggled to reunify with their children and/or grandchildren who had gone missing. Nevertheless, their sense of motherhood persuaded them to keep fighting.
To recap, gender and motherhood influenced La Madres de Plaza de Mayo distinctively. Firstly, the fact that they are not only women but strong women made them overcome several different misogynist obstacles throughout their continuous battle. Secondly, motherly love is their main source of motivation to find answers about the disappearing children's whereabouts, which is why it holds great importance. Lastly, identity is a key concept. What makes this movement so powerful is how the movement identify as mothers and how they wish to recover the identities of their missing children. This protest is one like no other. The constant reminder of the woman's determination portrays the true meaning behind gender and how it impacts the way situations are presented. Stereotypically, women do not possess the same power as the opposite sex, which is why it seems to be such an estranged concept that they took such a forceful stance. Imagine if in this exact situation the genders had been switched, making the protesters male and the dictator female. The public would most likely perceive this event differently. Their eyes would dart towards the actions of a female dictator, highlighting her hypothetical abusive ways, rather than how the men marched, since it is historically customary for them to protest. It is also important to note how it is not socially expected for men to do so because of their lack of motherhood. Las Madres de Plaza de Mayo should be looked up to because of their bravery against the actions of the Argentine dictatorship, and hopefully inspire the future generations of women to do everything possible when seeking for justice.